Welcome, everybody, to Sports Mouth Podcast with your host, Dominick. It is so great to be back talking all things sports. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking all things Los Angeles Angels. Now, Major League Baseball's opening day is just a couple weeks away, as the Angels will host the Chicago White Sox at Angel Stadium on April the 1st. But until then, the team is residing in Tempe, Arizona, getting some Cactus League action in and preparing for a full 162-game season this year. Now, to get an inside peek of what is to come for the Angels in 2021, I have two very special guests. Not only do they broadcast for the Angels, but their knowledge of the game of baseball is far superior than I've seen before. Now, right now, they are in the midst of 14 live spring training games on Fox Sports West for the Angels, and it's a pleasure to have them on the show, Jose Mota and Mark Gubicza. Gentlemen, welcome to the Sports Mouth Podcast. How are we doing today?
Doing great, Dominick, man. It's a pleasure to be on there with Jose and you, man.
Dominick, doing great, man. Hey, I got to let my wingman go first, but we're having a great time. Thanks for the intro. We're honored that you have us here on your show, and we, as always, know that you've been a hungry kid forever, been a great kid, and there's some good things ahead of you, and we thank you for being on.
Thank you, guys. I much appreciate that. And like you guys said, you guys have fun in the broadcast booth, and this year is a little bit different than in years past with spring training. I know 2020 with the COVID pandemic, it changed a lot of things. A shortened MLB season, no fans in the stands, but how does it feel, even though you're broadcasting back from California and the team is in Arizona, how does it feel to at least be broadcasting games again and to see fans in the stands in Arizona? And Mark, I'll give that one to you first.
That's the best thing you could say. There's fans in the stands in Arizona. You can tell just the energy the players are receiving from, well, whether it's 1,800 or 2,200 fans at that ballpark. They're loud, they're into it. So it allows Jose and myself to be, feel like it's a real game. We've been going out to Arizona for so long, or, Florida as well as spring training forever, but it's a little bit odd doing games here in LA, but it's still a lot of fun just to see the energy level so much different now for the players as compared to what we saw last season in that sprint of a 60-game season where no fans were there to really motivate you, whether you're at home or on the road where those fans aren't as nice, but they could still motivate in a better way as well.
That's true, Mark. And one thing is that we are very excited about the fans coming back. We saw over 2,000 fans the other day at Tempe Diablo Stadium. The attendance has been great. When it comes down to the allowed capacities in every ballpark, you see how many ballparks sold within hours. And it's about the fans. Let's not forget that. They come number one. And the one thing that's different, obviously, is not being there and talking to the players, visiting the backfields, getting a first glimpse at, the young guys working out in a different field, and to fill those reports for us, to not have anybody tell us what they did, but to see with our own eyes and evaluate and judge. So that's different. Also, obviously our interactions with the players, the veteran players, Trout, Pujols, Upton, Joe Madden every day with his interviews is something to really feed off of. But you know what, Dom, as we know, we have to adapt, and thankful we have adapted. Thanks for this technology, including this one right now with you, because otherwise it would be impossible to do, as smoothly as it is, even though somehow we're going to find a way to do it. And, I did so many years with Terry Smith, 19 years with Terry Smith in spring training. That's the first time I don't see Terry for spring training, but overall it's great to be working with Mark, and glad to see also how our outlet with Fox Sinclair has adopted also to know the importance of carrying these games. And it comes down with, from Artie Moreno, John Carpino, the people at Fox West, to know the importance that it has for the Angels fans and the tradition. They expect it every single year that every game's going to be on radio and TV. And I'm glad that they found a way to, get us into the studio, call the games, and see and get a glimpse and pass it on to the fans, everything that we see in spring training projecting into the regular season.
And that's an awesome part for the Angels organization. They're just one of a few teams in Major League Baseball that are having every single spring training game on TV and radio as well. Now, I feel this is a little softball question to start things off. What would it mean to you guys, the players, and the fans on opening day, April 1st, when the Chicago White Sox come to town, the gates open, even though it's in a limited capacity, that there are fans at the Big A to kick off the season?
Well, I guess, it's going to be really, last year was so odd going, the home games, 30 games at home. You go through the protocol to go up to your booth. You're no interaction with players, no interaction with fans, just walking by the concession stands. That's the thing really it hurt me the most, walking by all the people we got to say hi to, all the ushers and usherettes at the stadium and people letting you in the ballpark. They're not there. It felt so odd to do that. Now, opening day, they're going to be there. There's going to be smiles on their face. There's going to be fans there. You can wave down at them. You can say hi to them on the way up to the booth. I'm going to get a lot of energy. Jose will probably say the same thing. I'm going to get so much energy from the fans being there. Opening day is still, to me, it should be a national holiday. There's nothing like opening day.
Absolutely.
It's really a magical moment. Now that the fans are back, and even though it's limited capacity, they're going to be loud. We were joking around yesterday talking about in Cleveland, in Old Memorial Stadium, where it was a 76,000 seat stadium, but there'd be like sometimes 4,000 or 5,000 people there. It got loud. So I expect this, the Big A to be really, really loud opening day, but having them there is going to be such an incredible feeling on so many levels because of what this entire world and country has been through over the last 13, 14 months. All of a sudden they're going to be there and they're going to be so happy to be able to see some of the greatest players in all of baseball, both on the White Sox side and of course the Angels side as well.
That's for sure, Mark. And we know one thing too is, the fans make a franchise. They represent the team. They're so passionate about their teams. And we feel that too. I mean, we're fans too, but as Mark mentioned, to see the faces of those fans, and to me particularly, doing the shows, Angels Live shows from outside, we fed off of that. Their energy, standing behind us, yelling and screaming, pumping up the Angels, calling our names, chanting our names. That was like part of the shows. It was so different last year without those fans behind us. And even when you talk about, as Mark said, our friends in the stadium, the parking lot attendants and then the team store and walking around concession people, all of them, janitorial, everything, security guards, everything that we missed last year is going to be at least temporarily or limited to at least seeing them this year. And it's important that we do not forget that these fans deserve the opportunity. They have been so respectful of everything that's been thrown at them with the protocol. But baseball serves as a relief. And just to go to the ballpark, it's a relief to take your family to a ballpark. Look what happened in the World Series in the NLCS over in Texas with limited fans. And it felt like there's 50,000 people there in Arlington at Globe Life because of what they bring to the ballpark. And it doesn't matter what the capacity is. Fans bring a lot to the game. And the players I know that I've talked to cannot wait to see those smiling faces and their support at home and on the road.
Now, if that's what we can expect, at least if that's even just the base for what to expect in 2021, and we have names on the Angels, Mike Trout, Albert Pujols, Justin Upton, Shohei Ohtani, that's just another layer to what can make Angel fans so happy right now. But as we get into backtrack a little bit, back 4.5, almost 5 months ago, November 2020, World Series was over. The Dodgers were crowned the World Series champions, and the Angels finished 2020 season with a record that was sub 500 and their 5th consecutive losing season, missing the playoffs since the last time in 2014. Billy Epler exits after 5 seasons as the Angels general manager, and in comes Perry Manassian. Mark, what philosophy does he bring to the Angels organization, and what have you seen already from Perry that's making such an impact with this team?
Now, the amazing thing is I've known him forever. I remember him as a bat boy back down in Texas, and his dad was our clubhouse attendant too. So I've known him. He's been around the game. The thing I loved about him, even when we did that interview at his press conference, was he loves all the analytics and the sabermetrics we see in baseball right now, which definitely has a lot of plus, but he also realizes the importance of scouts, of communication with players, of players' hearts. And we heard that a lot from Joe Madden when he in his press conference the year before. But now you have a general manager who wants to combine the best of both worlds. And that's what I think you want to do. You want to have this way, and bring it towards the middle. And you're seeing that with a lot of moves that Perry Manassian made during the offseason to make this club not only a competitive club, but a club that we would be disappointed not seeing in the postseason. So I think he's the right guy in the right situation to turn it around where the players are going to be comfortable with the information they receive, all the data, but they're also going to understand they can talk to Perry, and they can also understand the fact that this team is going to go forward as far as we're going to play every day hard. We're going to play the guys that are playing the best at that moment. We're not going to worry about certain matchups. We're going to play the guys that deserve to be playing at that time because, hey, it's all about winning. everyone. We want to see Albert Pujols, which potentially could be his last year playing with the Angels. We don't know that for sure. We want him in the postseason. Everyone's saying Mike Trout as well. We know that. That's definitely something going forward. But you mentioned one guy we always end up forgetting so much is Anthony Rendon is arguably one of the best players in baseball, ranked number 8 by MLB as far as their top 100 players in baseball. So you have 2 of the top 8 players in baseball on your same team, and now you have a general manager that understands, hey, when July comes around, the trade deadline comes around, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get into the postseason. That's his mindset. It's all about winning, and his communication and understanding of how important that back end of the bullpen was. He's addressed that with it getting him Iglesias from Cincinnati. These little moves he's made, fortifying the starting rotation, helping out there as far as in the outfield, the importance of outfield defense, something that no one ever talks about, but that's something he stressed to Jose and I that day when he was announced. Outfield defense is so important. Not a lot of people talk about it, but that single through the middle and the ground ball in the infield, hey, you can still get a double play ball. But a mistake in the outfield results in a potential run, a double, triple, all that comes into play. And that's what he's putting this all together as far as getting his team in the right direction, still building this farm system, player development to make these players in the minor leagues better. We saw that swing from Jordan Adams yesterday. What a swing that was. This kid has got a ton of potential. There's so many guys that have potential in the farm system that need the right people around them to make them better.
That's true, Mark. And the one thing that comes to mind when I talk about why a change needed to happen. The organization was not going in the right direction. It was quite obvious. Some of the prospects that were getting to the big leagues were not as polished as we anticipated them being, going back to a group that I can go back to 2002, and 3. Frankie Rodriguez, easy pick. But John Lackey was an impactful pitcher for many years in the big leagues. When he got called up, he was ready. Ramon Ortiz. And when you talk about building a franchise, it's to draft picks, it's Latin America, it's what you do regarding trades, it's the depth of your minor league system, and it's the teachers in the minor league system. Perry Manassian understands all of this. 33 years in baseball, as he said to me, you like me are a baseball rat. Yes, we grew up in clubhouses, and Mark alluded to that, but also he understands about culture and building a culture and having competitive players, guys that show up every day and are mentally strong. And that is a lot of value in that. And you cannot measure that with sabermetrics, with analytics, but there's a value to that. The Adam Kennedys of the world, the David Ecksteins of the world, Tim Salmon, Benji Molina, these are tough players, man. These are guys that went through the grind, and they got off to a 6-14 start in 2002. And if they were not tough mentally, the team doesn't get out of that. Darren Erstad, there's so many examples, but what Perry has done to recognize is, where do I start? And I love the fact that he during that conference, Gooby, he says, this is not a rebuild. There's some tweaks, there's some adjustments. Run prevention is important. The Angels gave up way too many runs last year, have not been the most fundamentally sound team the last few years, and that's cost them. Now it's maximizing not just what you do with the offensive side, but minimizing also the runs that you give up by having a better pitching staff, having a lot of depth, and at the same time having the support of the owner and Artie Moreno, who the same day that Perry got announced said, we're not going to cut down our payroll, and that's a welcoming thing. The fans, again, I go back to the fans. Angels fans have been so loyal for so many years through the struggles. 1 playoff appearance in 11 seasons, as you mentioned, none in the last 6 seasons, and they still go and fill 3 million fans in that stadium. They deserve at least a change of direction and mentality and philosophy all the way from the top, from Joe Madden, all the way through the minor leagues, to build on something that's going to be steady and constant, because it's not just like, let's see what happens in 1 year or 2. No, it's being constant and steady, as we saw for so many years here with Tony Riggins and with Mike Scioscia.
Now, with the age of technology that we're in, and it's good to see that the Angels, not only from the front office, the coaching staff, and the players, as you mentioned, they're all buying into this. This is not a rebuild. This is a win now mentality, and it's about utilizing the technology that we have while also using essentially the eye test, basically a scout's mindset. You're going to see what a player has initially and then supplement it with the stats. And I think you guys were both former players in Major League Baseball, and sabermetrics and all the the depth of numbers that we have nowadays today really was not a part of the game back then. How have you seen it, at least Mark, as a former pitcher, for pitchers nowadays like Andrew Heaney, Griffith Canning, all of these gentlemen that are looking at these numbers? How do you see it differently from a pitcher back in the day to now?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of tools that would definitely help me be a better pitcher. From getting better spin rate, using a four-seam fastball upstairs. I always tell the story, when I was drafted by the Royals in 1981 at a high school, I threw a four-seam fastball and a curveball. The minute I walked into camp in Kansas City, you're throwing a sinker, a two-seamer, and a slider. I'm like, okay. At that point, if they told me to, after the workout, I was cleaning the locker room, I would have did that. That's what you do.
Yeah.
So I became more of a sinker ball pitcher. Now, granted, as Jose knows this, I got a lot of ground balls and success in that as well. But what we're seeing right now is also with the adjustment of some hitters going down and with the launch angle and lifting those lower pitches in the strike zone, they took a while to adjust to that upper part of the strike zone. So just having the data to be able to create a little bit better spin rate as far as the baseball off the fingertips and ride it up in the zone, or even go back to that curveball I threw just to change speeds, definitely would have helped. I'm seeing Andrew Heaney working with the Rapsodo machine to be able to get better with his changeup. All those things would come into play. But I still go back to, and Jose alluded to it, it's really hard. It's really hard. And the fight you have, whether you're in the batter's box or on the mound, you can have all that stuff, all the tools to make yourself a better player, better pitcher. But if you don't have the fight, I look at a guy like Trevor Bauer, who has all that information and he works it great, to be honest with you. But if you look at the way he competes, he's a fighter. That's why he's good. He's got the talent, and he's got all the tools to get himself better, but he's got the fight. That guy doesn't want to ever come out of a game ever. And he wants to even go to a 4-man rotation with a rotation that is as good as anybody in baseball, 6 or 7 deep. He wants to go on a 4-man rotation. So I think that's what we're seeing. And that's what I know, going back to Perry Manassian, he brought in some guys like an Alex Cobb, who's going up there to drive line. A number of other pitchers have done the same thing. He's a fighter. I mean, he might not wow you with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but he's also realized the importance of running his fastball. He's a ground ball machine, but also that split to be able to create a little bit better spin on a splitter too. So there's tools you can use to make yourself better, but also you don't want to be caught up into always thinking it's automatically going to make me a better pitcher. You still have to have that heart to be able to get the job done.
Yes, there's a room for obviously the sabermetrics, analytics are a big part of our game right now. And I think, Dominic, the best thing is how do you use it? How do you apply it? You talk about the Yankees, for example, and their success they've had. And they are probably the most advanced analytical team and sabermetrics team in baseball. And they've been ahead of the game for years. And I've talked to players and coaching staff members that have told me the Yankees are 5 years ahead of anybody when it comes down to this information. Now, it doesn't guarantee you world championships, but it does guarantee you the fact that you're going to go out there, evaluate, find talent that fits your philosophy and style of pitching, of playing, offense, your ballpark, all these factors that go into this. And there's room for that. Now, how you apply it is different. Some guys, you got to keep it simple. For some guys, it's about fastball command. For some guys, it's about, throwing breaking balls a certain way. So there's a balance that we got to keep. But overall, the analytics have helped a lot of people, have helped a lot of teams, but it also have hurt some people too, because some guys have missed the opportunity to be big leaguers because they don't qualify or check a box that really is a bit unfair when they're very good ball players. Take a Jared Walsh, for example. Jared Walsh was not a guy that anybody was counting on but himself. And he comes up and gets the opportunity because of Shohei struggles and Albert struggles or in platoons, and he shines for a month especially. And now forget the analytics. It's about what he did in the batter's box, what he adjusted to, how he saw the ball, how he went out there and performed. They got him the job, at least to begin with, here in 2021. So Mark knows we feel about the same way when it comes down to this. There's room for it because I would have used that information for myself when I was playing, had it been available, to make myself better and understand what I was chasing, how many outs I was making because I was, inducing to soft contact. And all those things would have been quite helpful. But you can't take away from the heartbeat. You can't take away from the fact that there's still a game played by human beings and not machines, not robots. But there's a room for it. And if you understand it and apply it well, you see a lot of guys that have had success using so.
Yeah, and I feel that phrase that you just said should be plastered on a T-shirt somewhere. Human beings, not machines, when it comes to baseball sometimes. And, there's a couple of players in Major League Baseball that maybe could be like machines. Albert Pujols has that nickname, but Perry Manassian comes in, he drops that philosophy down, and he's proving it day in and day out. And his first day on the job, he realizes I'm the Angels GM, and guess what? I have Joe Maddon as a manager of the Angels. He's entering his second year. And there was an interesting quote I read about a week ago about Anthony Rendon talking about Joe Maddon, and I'll read you guys the quote. It says, playing against him, being on the sideline, I always thought he was a nutcase. But now being on the same team as him and having conversations with him, there's always a rhyme or reason for why he may do something. It might be unorthodox, but he's done his research, looked up the numbers, and he has a gut feeling that comes into play. So I respect that. So Anthony Rendon, who, as Mark said just a little while ago, rated 8th in baseball among all players. You have him saying such a great quote, an in-depth quote about the mind of Joe Maddon. What does that mean for Joe Maddon? We know he's a great manager, but what does that quote really say about Joe Maddon, the manager?
Yeah, Dominic, it's pretty funny because we were talking about that the other day on one of our broadcasts, Jose and I, how Anthony Rendon said, this guy's like a nutcase. But when I listen to him, there's some reasoning why. And Jose and myself, we've been around Joe forever. I mean, he's been in the Angels organization forever. I've always been a big believer in positive people, and he is so good as far as getting the most out of every player. Now, say Mike Trout, for instance, arguably the greatest player we've seen in a long, long time. But Joe Maddon's job is to get a little bit more out of him. Same thing with every player. Anthony Rendon on his team, Shohei Ohtani, you can see the mind game he's playing with him this spring training to make him a better player. You can get, go back to, you can give all the information you want, and he does do that very, very well. But what he gets into the mindset, this is what he tells Justin Upton. He goes, hey, we got to use the middle of field approach a lot more. What's he do? He hits 2 mammoth home runs yesterday in the game against Milwaukee. Now, granted, that's easier said than done. He's been saying that for a while. But if you buy into that, you're going to be successful. Because if you try to pull baseballs, and if I'm on the mound and I got a guy up there trying to pull the baseball against me, I'm going to get him out. Unless I make a mistake, then I'll get a hit. But if you have the mindset of using the big part of the field, well, you've taken away a lot of my out pitches, because the great ones of all time, from Bob Gibson, Don Drysdale, Jim Palmer, they say outside at the knees, the best pitch in baseball. If you're trying to pull that, you're an out every time. But if it's the guys that can hit that ball back up the middle or go the other way, makes you adjust, makes you show something well off the plate inside to go back outside again. So all those come into play. And Joe Maddon, like I said, go back to that, is so good as far as getting the most out of your players, because he's always, every player to him is an individual, and there's different philosophies, different language to use to every single player to get the most out of them. And if you could do that as a manager, you're going to be successful. He took a team that was, bottom line, was awful forever, Tampa, to the World Series. Chicago Cubs hadn't won forever. I think the Titanic was still being built the last time they won a World Series. So Joe Maddon knows how to win. He believes this team is going to win. So I will not doubt him. And there's a lot of people saying, well, what is this Angels team ever going to win again? A lot of publications are saying, yeah, Pagoda has him about 87 wins. A number of them say more than likely has a really good shot at that wild card, maybe even the win in division. A couple other publications. Joe Maddon knows this team has to do all the fundamentals, all the little things, run the bases well. They've been running the bases exceptionally well, and they're aggressive. Hey, you might get thrown out, but also when you have those guys on the defensive side against you moving, chances are you're going to be successful. He wants to go back to playing the game right, playing the game at times aggressive, reckless, whatever it takes to win every single game, every single night. And when you have a guy like that running your club, Jose, you know how that is. You got a chance to win every night because he's behind you 100%. He's going to absorb the negative and allow you to shine with all the positives.
And Goob, you know very well that when you play for a manager that allows you to make mistakes and to be yourself, it's a different story. You know that, you make a mistake, either fielding or base running or a pitching selection that you made and somebody hurt you, and there's not somebody waiting on the top step to go, come here. I mean, that makes a big difference.
So the Angels pitching staff, Joe Maddon has talked early on about a 6-man rotation. We have the Dylan Bundy, Andrew Heaney, and Griffin Canning coming back this season. Shohei Ohtani coming back from injury, and he's looking like his old self. what would a 6-man rotation look like for the Angels? And what could that mean for all the pitchers to get that extra day rest to kind of sit, relax, and reevaluate their performance that they just had going into their next game?
I wouldn't be surprised if not only the Angels doing this, and Joe Maddon has said that there'll be a number of clubs doing the same thing. When you go back to what we saw last year in that 60-game schedule, 70, 80 innings was probably the most you're going to see from any starting pitcher. And then a lot of pitchers opted out or didn't pitch hardly at all or had some weird nagging injuries as well. So building up that arm strength is going to be something that's going to be very difficult for every pitching coach and manager to deal with organization. So a 6-man rotation allows everyone to get that little extra rest, maybe be able to push them a little bit more in that start, maybe try to get their, that 90 to 100, 105 pitch limit there before too long. 150 innings this year will probably be a lot. You might see some aces like a Garrett Cole maybe touching 180, maybe. So I think depth in there, not only those 6, when you got Jose Quintana in there too, and Alex Cobb, which I think right now gives them really good depth as far as that 6-man rotation. You have Reed Depner, who's throwing the ball really well. You have Jaime Barria also in there, Patrick Sandoval, Jose Suarez. So you have a number of different arms and looks that you're going to see, in my opinion, 8, maybe 9 starters during the course of the season. So I still go back to the mindset of being aggressive. And Joe is not one of those guys that's going to take out a pitcher to a third-time throw because all the analytics say, hey, the hitters are going to be really good against you that third-time throw. He's going to have a feel and look to determine how you're throwing. If you're throwing well, then you're going to stay in the game. If you're not, then that bullpen will be used. But what we saw last year, especially the beginning part of the season, of that sprint of a season, there were a lot of games got away, about 14 blown saves there in the first month and a half, 2 months. That's why you're not in the postseason. The month of September, everyone pitched better. Griffin Canning threw the ball exceptionally well, ended up winning a Gold Glove as well. Dylan Bundy was excellent. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him as the opening day starter, where Andrew Heaney was throwing the ball well now in camp too. There's a lot of options for Joe. Did they get that number 1 guy? Was there Trevor Bauer ever going to be available? I don't even know if that was ever going to be the case. But what Perry Manassian did was build really good depth and a bunch of fighters that have a chance. I look at Quintana, what his numbers look like. I always look and see, has there been any drop off in his average velocity on his fastball? No. Spin on his fastball or his curveball? No, there has not been any drop. So I still think there's a lot of good starts in him. Same thing with Alex Cobb. I think he's even picked up some velocity with a little bit better movement. His splitter's outstanding. So these guys have a chance of being better out of that environment, especially for Alex Cobb. We saw Dylan Bundy getting out of that environment in Baltimore, where it's a rebuild. You're not going to play well. You're in a tough division. You're in a small ballpark. All those things come into play. Get out of there. Bundy was, he was in the top 10 as far as Cy Young voting. Alex Cobb has a chance to be back to what we saw a couple years ago under Joe Maddon, when you remember how good he was with the Rays, where he can go out and pound the strike zone and get a lot of ground ball outs. So I'm pretty happy with this rotation right now. And there's some depth where we might see potentially a trade down the road. I mean, Perry Manassian has told me he loves his minor league system, but he's not married to that minor league system because it's not his guys yet. So you might see him be able to make a move to make this team better and get into the postseason.
And I think that's what the Angels need to look at, especially now. When you look back to the stats in 2020, the Angels were 25th in Major League Baseball with a 5.09 ERA. Opponents were batting .245 against them, which was 17th in Major League Baseball. Just looking at those 2 stats alone, earned run average and opposing batting average, what do Angel pitchers, regardless of starting rotation or bullpen, need to do to lower those numbers and be more effective with their pitches?
Well, there's a couple things come into play in this, and Dominick too. I think it goes back to what we talked about with Perry Manassian. He wanted to make sure the defense was better. If the defense is better, they're making plays in the outfield and the infield, then your pitching staff is going to be better. Those runs given up are going to be less. You're going to be more likely to be aggressive in the strike zone if the plays are made behind you. Everybody in that outfield will tell you they didn't play good defense last year, and that costs a lot of runs. A lot of those baseballs that end up being hits should have been outs. So that's going to change the infield right now, the way it's set up all the way through defensively. First base, second base, shortstop, third is excellent right now. And there's no holes defensively. There's going to be a lot of plays that are going to be made. There's going to be spectacular plays at every routine play. So you're going to see less outs given away by the defense. It's going to affect your rotation and your bullpen. Now, going back to what they have to do better. I think if I go back and look at my broadcast, falling behind 1-0, so often. They got so caught up to, I think, in that mindset of swing and miss percentages, throwing that very best nasty breaking ball, or you're rearing back and throwing 100 miles an hour with your fastball the very first pitch. Well, that's not the philosophy I'm hearing from Joe and or Perry. They want outs. And that means maybe that fastball first pitch is not going to be your maximum effort fastball. It might be that one where create some soft contact on the hands or off the end of the bat. But the bottom line is, historically, if you're a pitcher, you work ahead of the count, you are going to be successful. If you're behind in the count, hitters will crush you, because the mindset now, with all the information, the data they got, they're bringing you in the strike zone. So if you're behind in the count, they're not chasing. But if you get ahead of the count, you can get them to expand and swing at non-strikes. So that's always your goal as a pitcher.
Now, for the Angels, the biggest move, I think, at least in the bullpen side of things in the offseason, was picking up closer Raisel Iglesias. He was in Cincinnati, and he had great numbers with Cincinnati. And now, after a year where the Angels, or even some years past, the Angels really haven't had that number one closer, surefire, this is our guy. It's kind of been closer by committee. What does Iglesias, one of the new Iglesiases, bring to the Angels bullpen?
I'm still shocked he was available. That Cincinnati team was a really good team last year. They pitched exceptionally well. You know, they were in the playoffs. They didn't give up any runs. They just didn't score any runs, but I thought that team was a dangerous club going forward. To be able to pick him up, upper 90s fastball, an incredible change up as well, and a good breaking ball. That's the guy. You need that person in your bullpen where the other guys can kind of know their role. And I know we see that so often where, you know, sometimes the emphasis was put, hey, the seventh inning may be bigger than the ninth inning, or the eighth inning may be bigger than the seventh inning. We kept hearing all that stuff. But when you have that luxury of having a guy in your ninth inning setup where you know if you have a lead in a ninth inning or even eighth inning, because he can give you multiple innings and he can get you 5 or 6 outs, sometimes 4 outs, whatever it needs to be to win a game. You have that feeling that everyone knows, all right, I'll be the 5th or 6th inning guy. We have our 9th inning guy is going to be able to close it out. You have some other options as you go along, but him being there is going to make this team so much better.
Mark knows better than anybody the importance of having a guy that's set in your bullpen. Okay. I think that, 5 years ago, you started hearing the narrative about, well, maybe the most important inning is the 7th. Well, it could be that, yeah, you lose a game in the 7th inning. You don't always lose a game out of the bullpen in the 9th inning. But they start just switching these roles up, and honestly, it didn't work. And the results are there. Okay. You need a 9th inning guy. You need a 9th inning guy that's been there before. You need a guy that the other lineup, the other manager is going to go, oh, man, they throw that one guy in the 9th inning. But why waste that best guy in the 7th inning when you don't know what's going to happen the next 2 innings? And that's where a lot of guys fail. A lot of systems fail. A lot of general managers fail, watching these stats. So having Iglesias means that now you just got to find a bridge to get to him. And again, some games are not going to be ideally planned out where you say, well, I'm going to wait for Iglesias. Well, but Iglesias can come in, as Mark said, and get you an out or two in the 8th inning. And that's a huge thing to have as a closer. But they need to have shutdown innings from the 6th inning on to get to Iglesias. But I'm very glad that one of the first issues and things that the items that Perry took care of to have an established 9th inning guy, because the Angels haven't had that in a couple of seasons.
Yeah, that's right. And I think with the Angels, once you get as Mark and I were talking about, the 6-man rotation getting going, you have a plethora of starters. So you have a 6-man rotation, but you also have Jaime Barria and Jose Suarez. So you have 7, 8, maybe 9 guys who could potentially go into that starting rotation. You fill those guys out. Now, the question would be, the guys that don't make the 6-man rotation, could you see them in the bullpen, or would they possibly go down to AAA Salt Lake to get some work in and kind of be swing guys when the Angels need them?
I would say, let me jump in since Mark picked me up here for a few minutes, that you need those guys stretched out. The worst thing you want is for somebody to go down in the rotation and for you to not have somebody that's down in AAA on the alternate side, in this case, not having gone 6 innings, because that's going to be detrimental for your team when you need them in the big leagues, because that means that your bullpen's going to be taxed. So guys get upset, and yes, rightfully so. when they don't make teams after good springs. But with good communication, and obviously if you have options, you know that the possibilities of going down are always there, no matter how good a spring you have. But you need some length out of the guys that come from AAA. You need opportunities for them to be stretched out, compete against other uniforms, other teams, have an idea and continue to develop, build out some arm strength, stamina, and see who competes. I mean, there's a lot of guys that, end up getting called up that maybe you were not counting on, but they showed somebody something the first month of the season that put themselves at on that depth chart. I mean, remember a guy like Justin Anderson, for example. Now I'll talk about the bullpen, but just want to use that example. When Justin Anderson came up a couple of years ago, he wasn't even invited to big league camp. Before you know it, he's in the big leagues before a lot of guys that were projected to be there first. So the Angels need all these other guys that are not going to make the team in the rotation as an option for multiple innings in the bullpen, or to go to AAA and get stretched out.
And I think that's a big thing for the Angels. I know a lot of people in the offseason and in years past saying pitching, pitching, pitching. This is what the Angels need. They have the offense with Mike Trout at the helm. Pitching is what the Angels need. So I think once you have guys that are going to AAA, getting stretched out, and are able to come in when they need to, and the six-man rotation, I think Perry Manassian and Joe Madden, as we mentioned before, have the dynamic plan in place to get to the Angels where they need to be. But the biggest item that all Angel fans want to know, it's the two-way star Shohei Ohtani. He is back. He is healthy. He had an extremely strong start against the Oakland A's last Friday. In spring training, he went an inning and 2/3, allowed just 1 run on 3 hits, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts on 42 pitches. His fastball, changeup, and splitter were looking great. Mark, what did you see from Shohei Ohtani last week that gets you amped up and ready to go for the Angel season?
A comfortable deliveries, pitching from the stretch. The baseball was exploding out of his hand. He touched 100 miles an hour, generally set around 96 to 99. Need a little bit more work. He got around a couple of his sliders. His splitter, I think, was pretty solid as well. But I saw a smile after he finished. We hadn't seen that in a number of years now from Shohei Ohtani. And I think we even go back to our conversation with Joe Madden and even talk about Perry Manassian. No longer is it going to be a situation where everything around Shohei Ohtani is built for him to be able to be ready on that Sunday start. And then whatever days are going to be in between as far as hitting, he's going to be part of the 6-man rotation where it's going to be at that same spot. He's going to pitch that Tuesday, and it's not going to be the following Tuesday. It will come back Monday. So I think allowing him to fight for, an opportunity to pitch and his at-bats as well is going to make him better. He's doing all the workout. He looks great. I mean, I mentioned he went to drive line as well. All these things put into play as far as to make himself a better player because the Angels are pushing him. They're pushing him. There is no longer a situation where, hey, how you doing? How you doing? They're pushing him. He could be the best player. Joe has said it a number of times already in camp. He's a phenomenon. He can run faster than anybody else. He's got incredible power. He's throwing 100 miles an hour. But if he's not out there and he's not healthy, it's really it hurts the ball club. And he understands that. He understands how difficult a season it was last year, and he doesn't want to go through that again. Now, he's got to stay healthy. I mean, right now we feel great about it, but let's talk about that at the end of September and hopefully in October for playoff baseball. But right at this moment, I haven't seen him smile like this and comfortable in the batter's box or on the mound in a long, long time.
Very true, Mark. We're going to be cautiously optimistic about it because I recall back in June last year, just about when they announced the baseball was coming back and that they're going to have the summer camp, we all thought, oh my God, what an advantage for Shohei. He's had all this time to rest. He's going to be ready. Originally, he was not going to be, obviously, with the team projected until maybe mid-May. So we're thinking, my God, it's going to be great for him. Well, it ended up not being great for him. He ended up having his worst professional season ever here or in Japan. And he was not healthy. Now, what we see is at least a path that looks like he is on the right track from the offensive side and the pitching side. But he'll I believe he'll play a bigger role for the Angels on the pitching side because of what Mark talked about. He is slated to pitch in a 6-man rotation. I am glad that the kids' gloves are off. I mentioned this at the end of last season. If he's going to pitch in the United States, he needs to get used to the U.S. system. And he's been accommodated. The 6-man rotation is not because it's what baseball does. It's because of Shohei Ohtani. Yeah, there's a couple of teams, Seattle Mariners, that might, experiment with that, but it's because of Shohei. And Seattle obviously has Kikuchi too. So these guys are being accommodated. It's time for Shohei to stay healthy, to finish a season. And realistically, if he becomes a force on the mound, he could be that stopper. He could be the guy that other teams fear. He could be the guy that other teams don't want to face. When you go through a bad stretch, you can say, hey, we have somebody on the mound that's going to stop that bad losing streak. But the Angels need him healthy, and hopefully between 20 and 22 starts should do the job. Hopefully he can do that. And at the same time, map out how you keep him fresh also and balancing things out, because obviously he could be also an offensive force.
And I think, Jose, you used the right words, I believe, as cautiously optimistic. I know there's a lot of upside to Shohei Ohtani, and after last season being one of his worst professional seasons here or in Japan, I think cautiously optimistic is the perfect way to say it, because if he does something positively on the pitching mound, that's a plus for the Angels. And we already know what he can do with the bat. He just drove last week against the Colorado Rockies, or if it was, the Texas Rangers, actually, that 468-foot blast at Tempe Diablo Stadium that went far past the batter's eye in dead center field. We know he has the power, and to insert him into a lineup that already has Trout, Rendon, Pujols, David Fletcher that gets on base on the drop of a hat. What can Shohei Ohtani's bat bring to a already strong Angels lineup?
Balance. You need that left-handed balance in there, because a lot of your power for the right side, even though I'm still shocked how bad this team plays against left-handed pitching, consider so many of the hitters are right-handed power hitters, yet they struggle against left-handed pitching. That's another story. But that balance, you have Walsh potentially hitting the left side, you have Shohei Ohtani, you have Dexter Fowler. So now you have some balance on the left side swinging the bat as compared to all right-handed batters. And that, when you do that, you put your manager in a position where it's going to be a tough task going against like a Garrett Cole or a guy who's a really good right-handed pitcher with a good breaking ball. So balance is going to be huge. He can run the bases well, incredible speed, incredible power. But I think that balance where you can have him, it seems to be, I think going forward, we'll probably see Fletcher, Ohtani, Trout, Rendon, that top four. And then you have, Upton after that, potentially Pujols, whoever it may be going down, Suzuki. Iglesias, who's swinging the bat incredibly well, has gotten to be a better hitter as he's going along in his career. But those top four there with the balance, having a left-handed power in there, Shohei Ohtani is really, really important for the offense.
Yeah, it is. Gubi, now that you mentioned Iglesias, you know what? Jose Iglesias is going to shock a lot of people. But don't be surprised if he starts hitting lefties very well. He becomes a top-of-the-order option for Joe Madden, meaning he can hit right behind David Fletcher and create some havoc with those bats behind him and Trout and Rendon and Upton and Pujols. So I believe that Shohei needs to make an adjustment in a batter's box. We have seen good things so far in spring training. He'll be facing tougher pitching in the regular season. Teams right away are going to test him out. They're going to go out there and throw at his knees, move his feet to see if it's for real that he really has a simpler approach and not getting his feet moving, because that is the biggest issue. When it comes down to contact to the ball, this guy is special as they come, because he makes it look easy. He hits with power to every part of the field, especially middle the other way. But the true test is not going to be if he hits 560 in spring training or if he hits 10 home runs. It's going to come down to that first series facing the White Sox and Giolito and Lynn and guys are going to challenge him in many, many ways. Dallas Keuchel is a lefty if he gets to play. And whoever it is too, Reynaldo Lopez, to say, hey, he's for real. He's in the box. And then you'll see a true Shohei Ohtani like we saw back a couple of years ago when he won the Rookie of the Year.
And with him balancing out that lineup, as you mentioned just a moment ago, Jose Iglesias, he coming over from the Baltimore Orioles. He's had a longer career. He started off with the Detroit Tigers and former teammates of Justin Upton when they were with the Tigers together. Disregarding the bat for a moment, his defense, the Angels, the last couple of seasons have been spoiled with Andrelton Simmons. Simmons no longer with the Angels. He's moved on with the Minnesota Twins. You have Jose Iglesias to come in and fill in at shortstop. And defensively, he is one of the best in Major League Baseball. He has put some incredible defensive gems on display just the last couple of days with you guys on the broadcast. What does Iglesias and Fletcher up the middle at short and second respectively give for the Angels defense about saving runs?
Well, they're going to be so much fun to watch. When you look historically over, a long period of time, 985 fielding percentage for Iglesias. I mean, that's top dog. I mean, he's phenomenal. I always knew he was really good, but what we're still all these last couple of days, I'm like, it's incredible these plays he made. And then David Fletcher at the second base position, I always thought he's better at second base. A 991 fielding percentage last year as a second baseman. He made arguably one of the best plays I've ever seen at second base a couple of years ago in Houston, where he dove and then flipped the ball with his glove over to Simba for a double play ball. So he's got good range there, that second base position. He's got the good arm and the good instincts. Both of those guys are already spinning in their mind how they're going to be able to make a play. And so they're ready every single play. The minute you're ready to throw the ball, they're ready to make a play. So those two up the middle, any team that's ever been good, it's the catcher, second baseman, shortstop, center fielder, all plus defenders. If you're going to be the championship club, you better be strong up the middle. And that's finally, I think we're going to see that, because Fletch is going to play a lot of those games now, the second base position. Hopefully keep everyone healthy there in the catching position as well. But those two are going to be so much fun to watch play, because I can already see that relationship they're creating, and it's been a blast so far.
And listen, I was never at the level of Iglesias or a Fletcher as a middle infielder, but I know what catching the ball on a consistent basis does for your pitchers. Pitchers have a knack to turn around, take a breath, and go, hey, I don't need to strike people out. I can pitch a contact. And there's no better confidence and a booster for a pitcher than to go, well, today my stuff is not all there, but I know I have some good defense behind me, especially on the ground with Rendon on the left side, obviously with Iglesias, then, up the middle with Fletcher. Combination is going to be, and we see it already. It's been pretty special because they feed off each other. They improvise plays. There's nothing rehearsed, which I love. I think that's what makes, Ozzie Smith and those guys so special. He saw great things because in BP, it was like they're just taking ground balls in the backyard and sandlot type of baseball. And we need more of that, like not unsupervised, but unscripted practices for kids. That's the only way you find out how far you can go when it doesn't come down to just following mechanics and having fundamentals. Because all these plays that you see Fletcher make, Iglesias, Simmons, I mentioned Ozzie Smith and so many great shortstop, Omar Vizquel. It's because at some point, somewhere, I guarantee you, playing in the backyard with the brothers, they made them. So to them, it's like second nature. Oh, yeah, I made that play before. Here it is. There's the remembrance. There's always a mentality. And I think Mark, being a former pitcher, knows and understands there's no better feeling to go, man, those guys saved me today. I did not have it, but I pitched into ground balls. I was smart enough to match up with them, not thinking strikeouts, thinking contact, and we got the job done.
And Jose Iglesias, David Fletcher up the middle. I'm going to spin it back and look at the top of the order. I call it the Fletch effect because David Fletcher at the top of the order, he can hit a ball and get on base if it's on the ground 3 feet above his head. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Vladimir Guerrero in a sense, maybe not the power, but wherever the ball was pitched, he will put it in play. I remember a fun game. The Angels were in Baltimore when Vladdy was playing, and the ball literally skipped in front of the plate, and he still managed to get a base hit in the left center field at Camden Yards. So David Fletcher, Vladimir Guerrero, a lot of people probably wouldn't put them together, but I think the way they approach the plate and say, hey, I don't care if I'm 5'2" or 6'5" or wherever in between, I'm going to put the ball in play and give my team a chance. What does Fletcher do for the Angels at the top of the order as a table setter to great guys like Trout, Ohtani, and Rendon and the rest of the cast? And could Angels fans see David Fletcher getting a contract extension in the near future?
Yeah, everyone always wants that contract extension, but Jose and I were doing something out at the stadium the other day at the Big A, and his picture's up there with Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon. For a kid that grew up in that area going to the game, that's a huge thing for him. Going back to his play, 91% contact rate. Not only does he make contact, though, he sees a lot of pitches during the course of a bat. It's not like he's up there. He very rarely swings at the first pitch. So he's seeing a lot of pitches. So your number 2 hitter, your number 3 hitter are already looking at the pitchers, all his pitches that first at bat almost, because he's seeing high fastballs, he's seeing breaking balls, he's seeing fastballs in, he's seeing pitches away. He's fouling them off. There's nothing more frustrating as a pitcher than when you make what you think is a great pitch and he puts it in play and gets a hit out of it. And he runs the bases well, but he's always going to put it in play. So he gives Joe, as you flip the lineup around at some point, and he's coming up, there's guys on base, you can put guys in motion because he's going to make contact. That's going to help everybody out as far as the top of the order and the bottom part of the order. I just love the fact is there's nothing he doesn't hit. I don't care if you throw it 100 miles an hour, you throw that belt high or above, he's making contact. He's going to hit it hard. He hits the ball to right field. He hits the ball to left field. He hits the ball back up the middle. He will fight off a nasty breaking ball, a splitter, and he's always going to be in there in a position to make good contact, and he loves the game. There's nothing more really you could say other than the fact is he's a great baseball player, the perfect guy for a Joe Madden-led team.
Yes, in many ways, Gooby, going back to, as he mentioned, Joe Madden, I loved that when Joe Madden got hired by the Angels, the first player he talked about was David Fletcher and just praised him and pretty much said, this guy is a projected all-star. And Gooby and I saw this years ago, okay? Now, Fletcher chases pitches, but he puts them in play and he gets base hits. So it's like something you don't want to take away from him, but he's so disciplined. I know what happens when you have somebody like him that takes a lot of pitches. He doesn't walk a whole lot, and sometimes, and it really bothers me, some people want to knock him for that. So what if he doesn't walk? He's got 350 on base percentage. So what? Leave him alone. The guy can hit. He does his job. He's your best option leading off. Guys feed off of him because, say, you face a Verlander, and by the way, he's very good against good pitchers too. Very good against tough righties. He'll make Verlander, Cole, these guys throw, 4 or 5 pitches in the first, second at bat. Where if you're Rendon, if you're Trout, if you're Pools, you're watching either the sequence or release points or how it's dropping, all these things that go along with you watching the game and learning as to what's happening in front of you. And David Fletcher is the best teacher you have when it comes down to following what he's doing, because he's a guy that everybody can feed off of and a very unselfish player.
Now, when you have David Fletcher essentially setting the table for all these great guys in the Angels lineup, let's move it to the outfield for a minute. Mike Trout, Justin Upton, at least in left field and center field. What can we expect from Mike Trout next? He's done essentially almost everything. He's one of the greatest baseball players that fans have ever seen in the game. And then you have Justin Upton, who the last couple of seasons has been plagued with injuries, and his bat hasn't been where it has been in the past in regards to power and average. What can we expect from those two players representing the Angels outfield this season?
Trouty, the amazing thing is Trouty, he's only going to get better, in my opinion, this season, because I don't know if the focus was there for obviously a lot of different reasons last year. It's one of those battles you just wanted to get through the season healthy. And there were some focus levels where we're not seeing. I mean, he still had a great season for Trouty. I mean, but for him, he wants to always go to that next level. I expect that next level this season for Trout. The fans not being there really, really affected him a lot. He's told me that a number of different times. So we already know that story, but there's going to be some things we're going to see him make adjustments on. We did a good job as far as bringing pitches back down in the strike zone, because he was chasing some high fastballs, didn't do that anymore. They were pitching him inside. He learned to be able to turn on that pitch on the inside part of the plate, hitting the ball well to right center field. All those things we know he does well. He's going to improve dramatically, in my opinion, defensively, because he felt he didn't do a good job defensively last year. That was all part of what he was working on this winter, what you're seeing him working on during spring training time. So Trout is going to be better this year than we've seen in a long time. And that's hard to say that because he's already done so many amazing things. Justin Upton, healthy right now, a lot of confidence. Mentioned him earlier, using that big part of the field, the middle of the field approach. And his power really center, right center, when he's staying back, he is an incredibly strong hitter. And Jose and I were talking this a few days where he was getting beat on fastballs because he was guessing. I think if you take away, go back to and trust in your hands, which he said after the game yesterday, going back to using his hands and trusting his hands, he's much, much better. But when you guess and you guess wrong, you don't look good at the plate. So I expect a lot more out of him as far as on the offensive side. So I expect power. I expect a lot of good things out of him. He still runs very well. It's one of those things you don't think about him running the bases real well. But Joe Madden is going to be forcing that issue on every single one of these players that are going to be better players, not only running the bases, but also on the defensive side too, being more aggressive out there.
Yes, Mark. For Mike Trout, I never count out that he can take it to a new level because that's what special players do. That's what Albert Pujols did for so many years in St. Louis. Take it to a next level. Many people are like, well, he already has the best year. Nope, here's another one. How about 130? How about 140? Huh? RBIs. How about 30? How about 40 home runs? For Mike Trout, I really believe, and Mark is right, there's a lot of things occupying his mind last year. His offensive numbers were decent. For a lot of players, great. But he knows that the complexion and the buildup of this lineup is different now. Mike Trout was attacked last year with fastballs by certain staffs because of Anthony Rendon being behind him, and he wasn't used to that. And you can see him shaking his head sometimes going, oh, my God, 0-1, and another fastball. And he got in his head a little bit. And I can go back and look at the numbers and back it up. But now he's got Rendon, who is going to force guys, and Joe Madden is a big believer in protection. And with a guy like Rendon, oh, my goodness, Mike Trout's going to see a lot of good pitches, and he's not going to waste them. Mike Trout doesn't expand his zone, which is just a beautiful thing. He's still going to get his walks, maybe not to the levels of previous years, but, man, never put anything in front of Mike Trout that you don't think he's going to overcome. He is a superb, special young man. He cares about his teammates, but he is hungry to play postseason baseball and to shine, just like he saw Mookie Betts do last year for the Dodgers, and like Mookie Betts did for the Red Sox back also a couple of years back.
Yeah, and I think with Upton and Trout being a figment in that middle of the order for the Angels, they succeed, the rest of the lineup succeeds, you're going to see the Angels make a big impact in the AL West and in Major League Baseball, and people are going to start turning their heads and saying, this team is not rebuilding, this is a win-now team, and they're showing it day in and day out. But before we move on to kind of a grand scheme of things in the AL West, when the Angels entered spring training, Mike Trout came and social media went berserk, not only because it's Mike Trout, but his baby Beckham was at Tempe Diablo. They did a full photo shoot and fans on social media were just loving it. Here's a funny one. Should Angel fans expect Beckham's contract to be in the mail to the Trout's household ASAP so we don't have to think about, we need a Trout extension? No, it's not Mike Trout's extension. It's Beckham's extension. What has baby Beckham done for Trout, not only as a father, but as a player? Because we see that smile on his face whenever he comes up in conversation.
Jose knows this as well as I do. Dominic, when you have a child, everything changes. So you can have one of those, either a good game or a bad game, but when you go home, you have that little smile waiting for you as you walk in the door. That is so important. It allows you to relax as a human being, because the real focus of your life is your family. And as good as a player that he is, Beckham is going to make him that much better. I mean, Jess has been doing a great job. Obviously, as we know in this world, in the baseball world, our wives really are the keys to the whole family core, because they do so much, because we're on the road all the time, and the focus is on trying to get people out or get hits. But Beckham being there is going to make him so much better. You could see his focus on everything is a little bit better. It lets him relax. And if you're relaxed in a player like Trout, you're better. You're always better.
Oh, there's no doubt, Mark, that, family, your child, they bring perspective to life. And to know that you're 0 for 12 is not the end of the world. You're 2 for 25 doesn't mean that you're a bad person or a bad ball player. They bring perspective just so you know that there's more to life than swinging a bat, than throwing a baseball, than getting outs, and hitting home runs and strikeouts, all that. And it's just a great balance to have. You can see what happened when he came back, and he pretty much just torched the Mariners pitcher when he came back from after the baby was born. And when he talked, we talk to him often, as Mark knows. We've all become pretty good friends. That smile, man, that he had before is even wider now. We see some shots from spring training with he and his wife, Jess, and the baby. But it's just that getting your mind away from baseball, because it's such a grind for 8 months, 162, the travel, being away, arriving in some cities 4 or 5 in the morning, all these things that you just say, hey, but when I get back, that baby's going to be there smiling for me. I'm going to be able to play with him and not think about who I'm facing, about my slump, about the air, about anything but that baby, because you got to be able to protect and provide for them. And to know that as they grow up, they also know that you're not bringing your game home, which is very important too, is for them to see that you as a father have a balance spiritually and mentally and emotionally, to know that they matter regardless of how you're doing, because their love for you is not connected to your stats, is not connected to what you did last night. It's connected to you, the father that's there for them or not, and what you do in that time off that you have with them, spending quality time with them.
Yeah, and I think with Beckham around and Mike Trout having that big smile on his face and the love that you see him and Jess have in their hearts, and everybody that has for Beckham, you add another fan into the Halos corner. That's always a great thing. And especially as we enter 2021, the AL West, you have the Houston Astros, the Oakland A's, the Seattle Mariners, and the Texas Rangers, and of course the Angels. Houston is a veteran present team with Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa and Zach Greinke ahead of that pitching staff. The Oakland A's, to me, I always consider them just a pesky team that have good veteran presence, and they just grind and get the job done. And the Mariners and Texas Rangers, they have real young cores that are starting to come up and compete in the AL West. Mark, what do you expect from the Angels to compete in the AL West this year with those 4 teams?
Yeah, I'll start with, I think Texas is still, in the process of determining which way they're going to go, what direction they're going to go. So I think it's going to be still a tough process for them, even that beautiful new ballpark they're going to be in this season, what we saw last year. Seattle, they have some great young players. They're not that far away. They're really close. But I think it's a 3-team race. Houston, I still think is going to be really, really good. Alvarez coming back. He's a special player for them. Their offense there, Carlos Correa, Bregman, Altuve, they have some pop in their lineup, and Zach Greinke in their rotation. They have some good young arms. They just picked up Jake Odorizzi as well. Their bullpen, not a lot of experience, but it's a good power arms. We saw a lot of those guys. Dusty Baker does a great job with them. Now, Oakland, 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks ago, I was thinking, you know what? As special as they've been over the last few years, I think they're taking a step back. What do? They get Elvis Andrus. They get Mitch Moreland. They get Trevor Rosenthal. So all of a sudden now they're back and they're going to fight. And Matt Chapman's back healthy. We saw him make an unbelievable play defensively against the Angels. They are really, really good. They're not going away. They have some good young talent. They have some great young arms in their rotation. If they can stay healthy, they're going to be a force as well. So it's a 3-team race. I still think there's something special going on with the Angels this year. I love what we're seeing from the clubhouse, and that's something we've seen a lot of, reporters are talking about what's going on in this clubhouse as far as the chemistry going on. There's something special about it. Now, you have to stay healthy, and everyone's got to perform even a little bit better than they have in the past. But I think the Angels are in a position to not only get there as a wild card, but I think there's a real good possibility they can win this division, because those top 3 teams I mentioned are all really good, but everyone has a little bit of a question mark at who. It's a matter of who gets off to a good start, and the Angels have not done that in recent time. They need to get off to a good start, and that's the emphasis, what we saw for the first day of spring training, that Joe Maddon is going to make sure this team is ready to go and win games in April.
Yes, you got to win in the West. You got to win in the West. You got to take care of the Oakland A's, a team that no matter who they lose, they come back and know and have the perfect replacements. Great idea and great example there of the analytics and how well they utilize that through the years. They don't have the highest payroll, they don't have the cheapest payroll, but they find a way with what they have to make it work. And also not with the bigger names, but you got to respect that. Oakland, you got to respect no matter who's there or not. Now, Texas Rangers, I agree with Mark. They're still trying to figure out what direction they're going to go. Obviously, a lot of questions. Joey Gallo, is he going to be a Ranger? Is he going to be used for potential trade to bring in some high level prospects? But got a lot last year. No Verlander, no Cole. But then comes a guy like Framber Valdez. Who would have thought? Who said that? Framber Valdez was a guy that the Angels were after a couple of years back because Doug White, the pitching coach, liked him from his days in Houston. And, it was like, oh, who is that? Oh, he was the best pitcher they had last year in the Astros. Now he's hurt, is a big loss. And they have a lot of issues now with their pitching staff because some COVID protocol stuff, which are going to put him behind, I think. But they have Dusty Baker, man. And I'll tell you what, I don't think, with all due respect to Doug Melvin, I don't think anybody did a better job than Dusty Baker utilizing what he had through the struggles. Bad year from Altuve. Bregman, subpar year. No Verlander, no Cole, no set closer until later, and still went to the playoffs with a losing record and not the best of season, but kept that team together also through the scandal of the signs. Dusty deserves a lot of credit. For the Angels, my feeling is the time is now. As Mark said, get out to a good start, play good baseball, know who you are as a team, pitch well. It's going to come down to the one thing we always talk about, pitching, and that's pretty much it to get the job done. Seattle, go back and look at Seattle last year. What their pitching staff did surprised a lot of people. The starters, the bullpen was one of the worst in baseball, and they still were in the race until maybe 10, 12 days left in the season. They got it done, and the challenges will be there no matter what the division has done. But the biggest challenge is for the Angels to play their game, not give up so many unearned runs as they did last year, catch the baseball, give the catchers an opportunity to throw people out. That was a true deficiency last year. Pitchers need to do a better job allowing Stassi, Suzuki, Ben Boom, Guerrero, whoever's in there, to throw guys out because they will be challenged, and the game has changed in that direction. The Seattle Mariners are stressing base running and taking the extra base more than any team right now in spring training, to the point they brought somebody in to do a presentation about base running, believe it or not. And Mike Scioscia, as we know, big believer in that, understands what it means to have net bases. Yes, there will be times when the contact play doesn't work. There will be times when you get thrown out, taking the extra base, but you got to keep pushing the envelope. And the Angels need to go out there and know that with Rondon, with Trout, with Pujols, with Walsh, yeah, they can hit the long ball, but you need to still manufacture runs because there's going to be those days when there's going to be a drought offensively, but you have more in your arsenal to win ball games with the offense, but it all has to be matched up well with the guys in the bullpen, the starters, to give the offense a chance and not have to score 6 or 7 runs on a consistent basis to win ball games.
And I think that's the great thing for the Angels. They're going to be in a battle in the AL West with the Astros and the Oakland A's, and you never know what you can expect from the Seattle Mariners and Texas Rangers. I think it's just a good classic AL West battle, and I think it's still one of the best divisions in Major League Baseball to play each and every season. But as we kind of wrap up the season preview for the Angels in 2020, I wanted to get Mark and Jose a little rapid fire questions before we finish up the podcast here today. So I got 3 questions for you, rapid fire style. I'll ask them. You tell me why you think your answer is the best answer, and we'll see what we got. So Mark, we're going to start off with you.
All right.
Number 1, what is your favorite road city to travel to during the regular Major League Baseball season?
Boston. I love going to Fenway Park. I love the city of Boston. I love the restaurant. I love the seafood. Just the atmosphere, because I'm all about history. I grew up in Philly, so Boston would be mine.
All right, Jose, what do we got? What is your favorite road city to travel to throughout the season?
Seattle, can't beat it, man. 3 times a year in the regular circumstances, right by the water, fresh air, the seafood, the people, the ballpark. lot of conveniences, a lot of walking, and just a very unique city for me in so many ways. I used to go to Seattle when I was on the PCL and we played in Tacoma. We rent a car and just drive to Seattle just because. And I've always had a special place for me and my family.
Oh, I love that. I like how you both went seafood, just opposite sides of the United States. One in Boston, one in Seattle. So you tell me which, you got to figure out which fish is better than, is it on the East Coast or on the West Coast? But question number 2, who are your top 3 players that are not Angels in Major League Baseball that you like to watch on a consistent basis?
Mookie Betts. Just because he does everything so well, runs the bases, plays incredible defense, great enthusiasm. Juan Soto for the Washington Nationals, I think his swing is absolutely the most incredible. I know there's a lot of comparisons of late about him and Ted Williams, and it's going out. But you know what? He's got that smile that I think that I love watching every single day. And he's only going to get better. It's crazy how young he is and how good he is as well. And Javier Baez is still, I think, another one of those players. I just love the way he plays. A great power, incredible magician at shortstop position. But I always like players that love playing the game of baseball. Their smiles on their face. So those 3 guys would probably be my top choices.
It's pretty much a question. Who would I pay a ticket, expensive ticket to sit and watch? Juan Soto is right up there. No doubt. Gubi described why. Youth, batting title, world champion already. Back up the truck because you're going to have to pay him. I love Freddie Freeman with the Braves. I would love to go pay a ticket and watch this guy. What a pro. Go out there and perform and show the world who he is as he did last year. And Mookie Betts. I've admired him since he first came up as a second baseman with the Red Sox. And he has disappointed in the fact that he's won championships. He's won MVPs. He's made adjustments. He's a difference maker with a glove, with a bat, on the bases, and in the clubhouse. That speech that he gave the Dodgers last year as a newcomer, by the way, which takes a lot of guts, is refreshed still in their minds. And I love how he goes about the business because as his manager says, he is engaged with every single part of being a ball player and does it quite well every single day.
Oh, I love that. And for me, I agree with you guys. I think the 3 that Mark mentioned and Jose, the 3 that you mentioned, I know you guys shared Mookie Betts on that regard and Juan Soto. I think those guys are true players of the game of baseball. You do see their smiles on their face, but there's one guy that I think I could add into that mix, and he's just down the 5 in San Diego, Fernando Tatis Jr.
Yeah.
I think he is going to be a shining star in Major League Baseball. I know a lot of people say Tatis and Trout, those are the 2 figments that are the faces of Major League Baseball. I think I've seen him enough already that we saw in 2020, and he has proven himself. He deserved the contract that he got, and I think he's just a bright talent, not only in the National League, but I think in Major League Baseball as well.
Yeah, you can throw
we have more
Lindor in there too.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. We go down this list, and I would pay the most expensive ticket to go watch Clayton Kershaw pitch.
Yeah.
There's another one.
Come on. This is like a walking Hall of Famer like Albert Pujols is. So there's a lot of guys. The one thing that I want to see from Fernando Tatis Jr. that we haven't seen yet is I want to see a full season. I want to see what he can do in 155. It could be pretty darn special because this kid is such a talent. And again, the longest contract in Major League history for many reasons. I like to see, very intrigued to see what he can do in a full season.
And I think with what the Padres are doing with all the signings that they had, I think Tatis has a great shot at that 155 plus games to really show what he can prove on a daily basis with the Padres. But last but not least, we all know for every major league team, winning that ring is what everybody wants. Gubi, I know you with the Kansas City Royals in 1985 World Series champion, and Jose, you're a champion in your own right, 1984 College World Series with the Cal State Fullerton Titans.
Believe it.
What is your big, bold prediction for the Angels in 2021?
I'm saying at the very least a postseason and at least one round of playoff victory for sure. And then, then after that, it's so hard to predict, but I'd be absolutely shocked if they're not in the postseason and they don't at least advance to the ALCS, or at least get through that first round of the playoffs. I would be shocked, and I would be extremely disappointed if that's not the case.
I see and back up Gooby in every single way of this because there comes a time, and I think the time is now. They got the right guy at the helm in Joe Madden, the mentality, the buildup, and the nice balance of veterans and young players alike. And the Angels, the Rendones of the world, Pujols, these guys have won championships, and their factor could be even better this season because now they're together again. They're gelled a little bit more for a full season, hopefully. But the Angels, I see the Angels in the playoffs. I see the Angels advancing. It's all obviously predicated on health and good pitching. But I think there comes a time like when I felt it with Tampa Bay Ray and people call me like, what are you talking about? I said this in a broadcast back in 2007, I think it was. And I told Terry Smith, Terry, Joe Maddon's going to have Tampa Bay Rays have the winning record. Like, what? And people were like, are you kidding me? And it happened. So for so many ways, I had a feel for that. I have the same feeling for the Angels playing October baseball because the fans, especially the owner, Artie Moreno, spent so many resources into this, and the players deserve it.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I think getting to the playoffs is step one. Winning a playoff series is step two. And if you do end up winning the ring at the end of the day, well, that's even an added bonus. I think for the Angels, I see them flying under the radar for a little bit, even though they have Trout, Rendon, Ohtani. West Coast sometimes doesn't get as much attention as the East Coast teams. And I think you just see the Angels slide under the radar for a little while until that moment where it's like, oh, wow, we really need to start talking about the Angels. They are ready to go. Their pitching is on point. Their hitting is on point. So playoffs, I think for all Angel fans to have that playoff atmosphere back in Anaheim at Angel Stadium is going to be so great to have. I think health is always the number one thing that the Angels and any team that needs to look at throughout the season. If the Angels stay healthy, they will be a team to beat in Major League Baseball this season. But with all that,
Dom, thanks so much, man. Yeah, appreciate you having us, man, today. I appreciate that very much. It's been a lot of fun to talk to Gooby again, and talk to Gooby tomorrow very soon.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And for fans that are watching the podcast here on SportsMouth, Mark Gubicza, Jose Mota, continuing their spring training action live on Fox Sports West, a total of 14 games this season that the Angels will be putting on. And once they're not on, Terry Smith will be doing the simulcast on radio and TV. But spring training, just a couple weeks left. Opening day, April 1st, 2021 at Angel Stadium as the Angels will host the Chicago White Sox. And my thanks again to Jose Mota, Mark Gubicza. Thank you guys for joining the SportsMouth. It was so great talking Angels baseball with you.
Thank you, Don. I really appreciate that. You did a great job.